Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning and oil depots are under attack.
Biggest Russian drone and missile attack of the war. Ukraine says Moscow fired 550 drones and 11 missiles overnight.
All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours.
71 armored vehicles rolled down a single road and never came back. In just 90 minutes, a force worth millions was reduced to twisted steel and black smoke. But this wasn't luck or chaos, it was code, signals, and data that predicted every move. This video reveals how Ukraine's intelligence network built a digital cage around a Russian battalion before they even crossed the line. The trap was not set on a guess, it was built on a foundation of signals and pixels. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. A convoy of 71 armored vehicles doesn't just appear overnight. Metal, fuel, and men move long before the first engine turns over. So the question was never whether Russia would advance, it was where. Weeks before the first track moved, Ukrainian intelligence teams were already mapping the sound of that offensive.
To Russia launching a massive aerial assault against Ukraine, the biggest since the invasion more than 3 years ago.
Rescue workers say one person died and 26 were injured.
At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage.
Deep behind the line, arrays of Vidra 3 scanners filtered dense radio space, cutting through static and false transmissions. These systems didn't just hear noise, they decoded patterns, certain frequencies that belonged only to Russian battalion command networks. Every spike in signal strength hinted at convoys forming, logistics units calling in refuel schedules, or command posts beginning synchronization checks. But in those early days, no one could tell what that buildup was leading toward. Each contact might have meant a drill, a deception, or the opening script of a major assault. The uncertainty was its own enemy. Operators watched rolling signal traces blink in and out of range while trying to separate deliberate misdirection from genuine coordination. Every small movement, a low-band pulse, a burst of encrypted traffic, a sudden silence, had to be logged and cross-referenced. ISR teams worked the airwaves like forensic analysts piecing together an invisible crime scene. They learned that mass leaves a signature even when it hides. Engines waiting for orders hum at specific frequencies. Encrypted radios emit faint sideband waves. Layer those together, and you get a pulse line that tells you exactly how nervous an army is before it moves. Meanwhile, higher up the data chain, drones began to confirm what the spectrums couldn't. PD-2 surveillance platforms swept wide arcs, mapping dust plumes and track marks too consistent to be random traffic. Shark drones flew lower and slower, matching those traces to individual vehicle types, main battle tanks here, fuelers there, recovery vehicles trailing behind. The Russian formation was assembling like a slow-moving machine, locked into its habitual rhythm. That rhythm, rigid, predictable, massed along asphalt corridors, was the same pattern that analysts at the Institute for the Study of War had flagged as a Russian weakness. Moscow's doctrine prioritized quantity and straight-line efficiency. Highway columns, dense with armor, moving headlong under the assumption that speed outweighed exposure. Ukraine, by contrast, followed an elastic model shaped by intelligence, data, and precision timing. They didn't chase columns, they pre-wrote their routes. For 2 weeks, the analysis loop never stopped. Operators tracked the ebb and flow of radio bursts, each one plotted on digital maps with time stamps and estimated grid lines. They built a living model of the battle space, color-coded by certainty. Red arcs marked high-confidence command traffic, yellow arcs showed logistic chatter, green outlined suspected deception channels. Drone feeds refreshed those maps every few hours, converting static estimates into motion trails. One analyst described it as watching a beast breathe before it wakes. The coordination between sensors and eyes in the sky turned what could have been guesswork into precision reconnaissance. Vidra 3 caught the whispers, the PD-2S and Sharks showed the footprints, together they outlined intent. Within that growing dataset, the Russian plan came into focus, a two-pronged thrust, heavy armor to the north and a lighter flanking element to the south. The predictability wasn't accidental, it was doctrine repeating itself. By the 10th day of monitoring, the picture was complete enough for targeting teams to act. From the aggregated feeds, Ukrainian commanders drew a narrow corridor roughly 5 kilometers long along the route most likely to carry the lead element. This wasn't a random stretch of road. It offered clear fields for artillery observation and enough cover for anti-armor teams to stay invisible until the first wave appeared. Engineers and drone controllers used that projection to mark coordinates for pre-positioned ambush points, each synced with artillery grids already pre-registered. To maintain secrecy, every firing unit in that sector powered down transmitters and kept engines cold. Silent, engines cold, emitters off, that phrase defined their waiting game. For them, battle preparation meant restraint. They became dark spots in a live network, unseen yet informed by it. Intelligence dictated where the fight would happen, but not when. The data trap was fully formed, a digital outline of an ambush waiting to convert from map to impact. Every Ukrainian position now watched for one signal, the first confirmed ping of Russian movement across that corridor. The trap existed only as numbers, coordinates, and colored lines on a display, but once the column moved, those numbers would translate into smoke and craters. The system had already answered the first question: where would the Russians go? The next was when to strike. And somewhere inside those control trucks, analysts stared at flat screens glowing green, knowing that the next radio pulse could flip all that quiet into war. The trap was built, but it was still only light and code. The instant the lead tank crossed that threshold, it would all turn kinetic. The battle at Verno-Kamyanka wasn't won when the first shell left the tube, it was won when the first Russian frequency cracked on a screen. Power shifted from armor to analysis, from noise to understanding. Ukraine proved that data discipline can outweigh brute mass. A column worth $150 million was erased by munitions costing a fraction of that, collapsing an entire offensive built on outdated doctrine. This is the new equation of war: information over intimidation. So ask yourself, who wins the next conflict? Those who pile steel, or those who predict it? Subscribe and join a community that studies both.